I'm Jamie S. Rich. I've been working in comics for 20 years. Join me as we dig a little deeper into how comic books are made and get to know the people who make them. This is From the Gutters.
So, I guess what do you do in your off times? How much do you work in a week? Like, what's your work ethic?
I try to work. It depends. Like, if I have a deadline to meet, it's 12-hour days, like 6 days a week. What I do in my off times is none of your damn business. Let's not get into that.
Okay, I was just curious how Ted Naifeh blows off steam. I know you play the ukulele.
I play the ukulele. Yes, that's what I do to blow off steam. I horse around with the ukulele, but I'm not actually serious about it. It's just.
Are you otherwise musical?
Relaxing. Oh God. So, a friend of mine had this dream of starting a band, and he had a name for the band. It was the Final Frontiersman, and he's very tall and very lean, and he had got Spock ears and a little like a shaggy like Beatlesy mod wig, and he plays guitar incredibly well, and he would be the Spock. And then his wife plays the bongos. His wife Kelly, who's my ex-girlfriend, who I named Courtney Crumrin after, Kelly Crumrin. And they recruited me to be the Shatner, and I didn't want to be the Shatner because that's really dorky. But they begged and they begged, and then they got somebody else, and he didn't work out, and they had a gig coming up, and I'm like, okay, I'll do this once. And they put me in the shirt, and I looked at myself in the mirror with this Captain Kirk shirt on, and I'm like, oh my God, that's okay. Now I'm doing this. So that's something that I do with my time. I probably shouldn't have admitted that here because now my image as Mr. Cool is completely blown.
Was your family in general creative, or?
Not really. I mean, my mom and dad are not that. They're not creative people. My dad's a shrink. My mom was a scientist, and then she got into psychology because after the bottom fell out of research, and like my mom was studying biofeedback and bottom fell out of that. They're not. I mean, my dad loves stories, and he loves like myths. He's really into Jung and all the whole archetypal stuff. He took me to see like Federico Fellini movies, and we talked about 8.5 and the Satyricon and all these crazy like bizarre 70s, 60s Italian, surrealist movies, and what they meant in the inner life and all that stuff. And I tried to let that inform my work, but I like the pulps, and I don't think he quite gets that. Like he's just discovered Dashiell Hammett and is just beginning to wrap his head around that. And
so where did then all of that stuff come in for you, like comics and?
Oh, I think that was escape. I mean, I was doing very badly in school. A buddy of mine had discovered The Dark Knight Returns, and like, you should see this and take a look at it, and it just, that changed my life. Dark Knight and Mage by Matt Wagner, which of course you guys are familiar with.
Yeah.
And a couple of other books like that. Swamp Thing, of course, by Alan Moore, which, I mean, that guy went and touched everything in DC and every, like all of superheroes, and just kind of what my dad dreams about. But I tried to show it to my dad, and he didn't quite get it. But this is taking this pulp material and finding the depth in it, which of course, like all the classics that he loves, so like the Homer's Odyssey and all that stuff, is taking old, hoary, old, tired, mythic stories and breathing new and relevant life into them. They were modernist in their time, and so like that's kind of what I've always loved about about comic books. What was happening in comic books when I got in was it was taking these tired old pulp characters that never really had much going for them in the first place, and finding the life and the seed that made them relevant, that made them deep, and really expanding on that and like just digging all that out. And I loved that stuff.
What was your earliest breakthrough in comics? Like, what was your first gigs?
I was hired. I was 19. I had a great little set of pages. I think of them as a great little set of lies that suggest that I was a much better artist than I actually was. And I brought them to this convention in Oakland, outside of San Francisco. And this company called Innovation had just had big success adapting The Vampire Lestat. And so they wanted to adapt other famous fantasy books, and so they got Shadow of the Torturer. And I got assigned to that, and we were going to do the first Shadow of the Torturer book as 6 issues. And I started drawing it, and like weeks went by, months went by, I'm drawing it. And like I think I got 3 issues in before they pulled the plug and said, you know what, you're just way too damn slow. Because I had no experience. I was 19, I didn't know what I was doing. I was putting way too many lines in, just tons of cross-hatching. My pages were like that. And, you know, I kept at it. You know, I want to say I was in love with comics, but there was also that I'm just no good at anything else. I mean, it was either comics or flipping burgers for the rest of my life.
So you mentioned that you have stuff in the works. So you're done with Kourtney, you're already on to the next.
I have a new project that's all written out. It's called Princess Ugg, and it's about a barbarian princess who has to go to princess finishing school.
Nice.
And, you know, it's like, luckily, I mean, that's the thing, Kourtney was always really hard to sell because there's no simple log line for it. But, like, you know, Princess Ugg has a very clear, definitive plot that's basically what it's about. You know, this barbarian girl, like, realizes that she needs education, and she goes to, and the only place that princesses go for education is this finishing school. And so she's there among all these kind of Disney-style princesses. Like, there's an African princess, there's an Asian princess, there's a Gothic princess, and then her roommate is like what I think of as the Disney princess. You know, she has a cone hat, and she's, you know, really bitchy and spoiled, and she thinks Olga is a cave woman, so she calls her Princess Ugg.
So is that going to be like a short series? Or?
It's going to be 8 issues, and then we're going to collect it eventually collect it. But I want people to buy the 8 issues. And
is Warren Wucinich going to color Princess?
He's going to color the interiors. Yeah. Oh, Warren is. Oh.
Okay. How's your working? How does that working relationship work for you? Because he's colored both the old Kourtney and the new Kourtney.
He's coloring. I mean,
time.
So now Kourtney is officially like soup to nuts. Other than a couple of covers that I did. It's all colored by Warren Wucinich, and it's what a treasure he's been. You know, he's just imbued the whole book with this special kind of etherealness that it never quite. I tried to give it, but it's really hard to create with just black and white inks, and he just gives it this depth and this mysticism and this magic, and it's really hard to do fantasy in just black and white line. You know, it doesn't quite evoke the way color does.
Do you give him much direction, or does he just interpret from what he sees?
We sampled a couple of colorists, and I had talked to another number of very skilled people who wanted to do it. But I was looking at everybody who had done color samples. And, you know, there were people who did more like workman-like, you know, clean, tight, you know, top quality level color. But what Warren did was weird and experimental, and I really liked that. And I could see that he wanted to, like, really, you know, contain the color palette, which I really like, and he wanted to try just really pushing atmosphere rather than, you know, what they call local color, which is the color that's on the object that you're coloring. You know, atmospheric color, like the color of the light around, the color of the space, the color, you know, the darkness, the dim bluish moonlight, you know, all that stuff. He really wanted to experiment with that, and he has a million ways of interpreting just moonlight, and it's all great. Like, and I just love how daring and experimental he is, and that's why I felt like it was a perfect match.
And then how long are we going to wait until Princess Ugg, do you think?
Well, it's all scripted. I had written it as a graphic novel, but I ended up having to break it into 8 issues, and that was interesting. Because I mean, the challenge was, how do you invent new story breaks? Like, so I had to, you know, basically how do you invent new story beats? So, but I found that, oh no, there's a story beat here. I'm just not hitting it hard enough. And so I got to, you know, I made a little room, and I would like hit a story beat much, much harder than I had when I scripted it out as just one great big story. And that was really fun to get to hit the emotions harder. And I realized I had uncovered some untapped potential in the book to like be even more emotionally impactful, and to find an even more, you know, brutal kind of, like, you know, because I love punishing my characters.
Well, it also sounds like it's going to be more intentionally comical.
And it's going to be more funny, but it's, you know, you know, I like making my characters cry. You know, it's going to be funny, but the characters are going to cry, and hopefully the readers. You know, I like to think that Kourtney, like, that there, like, when people finished the last Kourtney book, that there wasn't a dry eye in the house. I like to think that nobody can help but cry when they get to the end of Kourtney, but, you know.
Well, like we were talking earlier
some
about
cynical bastards in the comic book world.
We also talk about how, like, the creative process for a lot of us begins sort of in that tragedy and that sadness and despair, and I kind of feel like most comedy comes out of some really sad places as well.
Comedy is built around sadness. It's built around despair. But it's also built around people not knowing the difference between what they think they want and what they really want. And I find that to be the funniest comedy. You know, but, you know, Polly is just, Princess Ugg is just going to be, it's going to have that situation, the funny situation of, like, what does it mean to be a princess? Like, you know, and, like, you know, Olga, the main character, she's, you know, she is not, you know, if you mean being able to play the lute and sew tapestries and look pretty in a pretty dress and walk with a book balanced on your head, she's no princess at all. But, you know, if you mean, like, being the daughter of a line of kings that goes back 1,000 years, well, you know.
Have you done any, like, serious sort of barbarian type work? You did a cover recently for Helheim.
Oh, that was really fun.
But have you ever done it? Is that sort of, something else you would be interested in? Is doing, like, Conan or?
Yes, I do love the barbarian genre, and who didn't grow up on Frank Frazetta and
so you could do Princess Ugg Helheim crossover variant covers.
That might happen. That might happen. Actually, that's not a bad idea. I mean, we're both the same publishing house, so why not?
So Princess Ugg is Oni Press as well.
Yeah, Princess Ugg is going to be through Oni. Yeah.
Awesome.
So like Helheim and Princess Ugg definitely kind of exists in the same, or potentially in the same world as Helheim.
So, well, cool. Well, thanks for coming out and talking to us today.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's good seeing you again.
Awesome.
And everybody look for Princess Ugg coming up in probably like next year or so, I would guess.
Sweet.
All right.